I still remember the day my own family looked right through me, as if I didn't exist. My daughter-in-law, Melissa, stood by the doorway of the house I had built with my husband, her arms crossed, her voice cold as winter. She said, "You've had your time, Mary. This house is ours now. You can't just keep living here like a shadow." I stared at her, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. My son, Daniel, didn't even look at me. He just kept his head down, pretending to fix something on the table. And then she said it, words that would haunt me for years: "We don't need this old woman around anymore." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. That house, every wall, every photo, every corner, held memories of my entire life. I had raised Daniel there. I had cooked in that kitchen for 40 years. And now, I was being erased from my own story, as if I was nothing more than a faded photograph. That night, I packed what little I had, a few clothes, my late husband's picture, and a small wooden box he gave me before he died. When I stepped out of that house, I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just looked up at the stars and whispered, "If they want to forget me, let them. One day, they'll remember." Hi everyone, before I continue, if you're new here, welcome to our channel. I'm so glad you found this story. Please take a second to subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever been through something like this, if someone made you feel invisible, share a piece of your story below. You never know who might need to hear it today. After I left that night, I walked until my legs couldn't carry me anymore. I ended up sitting on a cold park bench, clutching that small wooden box. Inside it were a few letters my husband had written to me during his time in the army, and a tiny silver locket with our wedding picture. That box was all I had left of the life I once knew. The wind was sharp and cruel, and I wrapped my old shawl around me, trying to hold on to what little warmth I had left. Cars passed by, laughter echoed from nearby homes, lights flickered from porches, but none of it belonged to me anymore. I was just a ghost, forgotten by the people I had lived for. By morning, I found my way to an old friend's diner, Nancy's place. She looked shocked when she saw me. "Mary, what on earth happened to you?" she asked, eyes wide with concern. I gave her a weak smile and said, "Nothing, dear. Just life reminding me where I stand." She didn't press for answers. She poured me a hot cup of coffee and gave me a seat by the window. For the first time in hours, I felt human again. As I sat there watching the street outside, I realized something: people only value you when they think they need you. The moment they don't, you disappear. That day, I made myself a promise. If my family wanted to erase me, I would make sure my story was written somewhere they couldn't destroy it. Somewhere permanent. But what I didn't know then was that my journey to become unforgettable would begin with the very people who forgot me first. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Nancy let me stay in a small room above her diner. It wasn't much, just a narrow bed, a single lamp, and a window that looked out onto the quiet street, but it was more than I had. I would wake before dawn to help her in the kitchen, peeling potatoes and wiping tables while the smell of coffee filled the air. People came and went, laughing, talking, living, and I sat there, quietly serving them, invisible in plain sight. But I didn't complain. For the first time in years, I had peace. At night, I'd sit by the window and think about my husband, Richard. He was a strong man, always with a gentle word and an unshakable belief in doing what's right. Before he passed, he made me promise something I didn't understand at the time. "Mary," he had said, holding my hands. Whatever happens in this house, make sure the truth never dies with me. Those words used to confuse me. But now, as I watched the lights flicker across the street, I realized, maybe he knew something I didn't. Maybe he had left behind something I wasn't supposed to forget. One afternoon, while cleaning the storage room in Nancy's diner, I found an old envelope tucked inside my handbag, one I hadn't opened in years. My heart skipped when I saw the familiar handwriting, Richard Murray. My husband's name. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a folded piece of paper, a copy of the house deed. But it wasn't in my son's name. It wasn't mine. My breath caught in my throat. The house my daughter-in-law claimed was hers, legally still belonged to me. Richard had made sure of it before he passed. He must have known this day would come. That night, I sat alone, staring at that piece of paper, feeling the storm of emotions inside me. Anger, sadness, but also power. For the first time in years, I held something that reminded me I wasn't powerless. I had proof that my life, my love, my years of sacrifice, still meant something. Still existed. But I didn't rush to take revenge. No, I waited. I planned. Quietly. I went to a lawyer the next morning, a kind man named Mr. Evans who would known my husband. When I showed him the deed, his eyes widened. "Mary," he said, "this document makes you the rightful owner. They can't take that from you." I nodded slowly. "I don't want to take it back out of anger," I told him. "I just want them to know what they lost when they turned their backs on me." A week later, I visited the house. I didn't go inside, I just stood across the street, hidden beneath my shawl. Melissa was in the garden, talking on the phone. My son, Daniel, came out holding their little boy. For a moment, I almost called his name. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe pain. I turned away, whispering to myself, "Not yet. They'll see me when the time is right." And just when I thought I was ready to let go, life threw another surprise my way. Late one evening, as I was locking up the diner, I heard a soft knock on the door. When I opened it, a familiar voice whispered, "Mom." It was Daniel. His eyes were red, his face pale. "Can I come in?" But that wasn't the whole story. That night, after I closed the diner, I sat alone by the window, listening to the rain tapping against the glass. It had been a long day, but my heart felt heavier than usual. Maybe it was the way the storm sounded, sharp, restless, like the echoes of all the years I had tried to silence. Then suddenly, through the sound of thunder, I heard a knock on the door. I froze. No one ever came that late. When I opened it, my breath caught in my throat. It was Daniel. My son. His face was pale, his hair wet from the rain, his eyes swollen with guilt. For a second, we just stood there, staring at each other like strangers who used to know everything about one another. He opened his mouth but no words came. Finally, he whispered, "Mom. I'm sorry." Those words hit me like lightning. 3 simple words, so small, yet they carried the weight of years I spent crying in silence. I let him in, my heart trembling with a mix of pain and hope. The diner was dark, only one small bulb flickering above the counter. He sat down slowly, his hands shaking as he looked around at the place I had built from nothing. "I should have never let it happen," he said, voice breaking. "Melissa told me everything, what she said, what she did. I should have stopped her. I should have stood up for you. I looked at him, at the man who used to be my little boy, the one who used to bring me dandelions from the yard, saying they were sunflowers for mommy. And now here he was, older, broken, drowning in regret. Daniel, I said softly, you don't need to carry her guilt. But you do need to understand this, when you chose silence, you chose her side. And that silence hurt more than any cruel word could. He lowered his head, tears spilling down his face. I didn't mean to lose you, he whispered. I thought I was protecting my family. I smiled, but it was a sad smile. And what am I, Daniel? Was I not your family too? He tried to speak, but his voice cracked, and I could see the answer in his eyes. He had lost sight of what family truly meant. For a long moment, we just sat in silence. The sound of the rain softened, and the air between us filled with something fragile, forgiveness trying to find its way through years of hurt. Then I reached into my worn purse and pulled out an old envelope. I slid it across the table. What's this? He asked. Your father's last gift, I said. I never told anyone because it didn't feel right back then. But maybe now it's time. He opened the envelope and unfolded the paper inside. His eyes scanned the words slowly, his expression changing from confusion to shock. Mom, this is a house deed. It's still in your name. I nodded. Your father made sure of it. He wanted me to have security, a choice, even when the world turned against me. I could have taken it back any time. But I didn't. Because what I wanted wasn't revenge, Daniel. It was peace. I wanted understanding, not victory. He looked up, speechless. All this time, you could have taken the house back. Yes, I said quietly. But if I had, I would have become the same as the people who hurt me. And I couldn't live with that. I waited, not for justice, but for love to find its way home. That was the moment Daniel broke down completely. He reached for my hands and cried, not just for me, but for the years we lost, for the mother he forgot to stand beside. I held him close, the way I used to when he was small, and whispered, it's okay, my son. We can't change the past. But we can choose what happens next. The next morning, Daniel came back, this time with the kids. When I saw them run into the diner, shouting, Grandma, at the top of their lungs, it felt like sunlight finally broke through the clouds that had been hanging over my heart for years. They hugged me tight, their little hands around my neck, their faces warm and innocent. For the first time in a long time, my home wasn't empty. It was filled with laughter again. Melissa stood a few steps behind, her eyes red and swollen. She walked up to me slowly and said, I was wrong. I said things I can't take back. I hurt you, and I'm so sorry. I looked at her, this woman who once took everything from me, my peace, my dignity, my place in the home I helped build. But I also saw fear and remorse in her face, something real. Melissa, I said gently, we all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after. I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Her lips trembled, and she nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. That day, we all sat together for the first time in years, not as enemies, but as a family learning how to start over. Daniel helped me close the diner early and said, Mom, come home. Please. Let's start again. I smiled. Home isn't made of walls, Daniel. It's made of hearts. And right now, I think we are finally building one again. From that day on, things began to change. Daniel and Melissa visited me every week with the kids. We'd have dinner, talk, laugh, and remember what it felt like to belong. I still kept the deed folded neatly in my drawer, not as a secret weapon, but as a reminder that sometimes power isn't about fighting back. It's about standing your ground without losing your kindness. Now, as I sit here telling this story to you, my sweet grandchild, I want you to remember something important. People may deny your worth, they may forget your sacrifices, they may even erase your name. But truth has a way of surviving. If you stay patient, kind, and strong, the same world that ignored you will one day remember you, not for your revenge, but for your grace. I looked out the window, the sunset painting the sky in gold and pink, and smiled softly. They denied my existence once, I whispered, but now, they'll never forget my presence. And as I turned back to my grandchild, I saw tears glistening in their eyes. I reached out, held their little hand, and said, "That's how you take your life back, sweetheart, not with anger, but with peace, dignity, and love." The room fell quiet, only the sound of the clock ticking. But in that silence, I felt something powerful, not victory, but peace. The kind that only comes when you stop waiting to be seen, and start living as if you already are.